Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. This is going to be really interesting. I always like it when somebody does something that I've never seen before, which after doing this since 2017, got to be thousands of reviews by now, certainly thousands of videos. We have seen pretty much everything you would think, but somebody will come along with something new. Such is the case today. We've got a Suitcase player with a tape deck in it. So we're going to unbox it, review it, do a direct feed sound test from a Suitcase player. So if you've never owned a Suitcase player and you were curious, what is the sound quality really like? You're going to find out today. Plus, we're going to tear it apart and see what's inside. You're not going to want to miss this. Okay, we're back at it again with another record player review. This should be really interesting because Victrola has taken the Suitcase player to the next level by not necessarily increasing the quality of the existing components, but by adding new functionality, which is kind of like, okay, I guess we could do that. Why not? So we're going to unbox it, test it out, do some direct feed sound test, review it, and I think just for fun, a little cherry on top, we'll take it apart and see how they crammed a cassette player in this. So this is the Journey Plus Cassette Suitcase player. Without further ado, let's get into it. Purchased this directly from Victrola, and it's shipped from Denver, which is ironic because, as you may remember, that's where we used to live. So we moved out here last year. By the way, so glad we did that. So we got some retail packaging in here. So let's go ahead and remove that. Haven't seen this new artwork yet, but it looks cool. As you can imagine, the retail packaging on a Suitcase player is big time because these are designed primarily for the impulse buy. Somebody that goes to the store looking for something else and comes upon this and is like, hey, this is cool. I could play my old records and maybe even my old tapes. That's really what it's designed to do. By the way, I want to point this out. This unit does have Bluetooth streaming, so you can send the Bluetooth out to Bluetooth speakers or Bluetooth headphones. And like I always say, these players hold an important part, an important place in this hobby, and it isn't to be the best record player ever. It's just to be a starting point. I like to think of these as the vinyl equivalent to an instant film camera, the kind that's disposable, that you pick up at Walgreens, take some pictures on, and, you know, basically get the thing developed and never see that device again. Now, they're not quite that disposable, but just like those aren't designed to be the best camera ever, they still function fine. They take pictures, they do what they're supposed to do, and then if you're interested, you can move on to something else. But if it fits the bill, if it does what you want it to do, then so be it. Plus, these are fun. They're portable-ish. You still need to plug them into power. A lot of people assume that they're battery operated, and for the most part, none of these Suitcase players are battery operated. And let me say at the outset, this is not made by Crosley. Crosley doesn't make Suitcase players. Victrola doesn't even make Suitcase players. They are marketing companies that purchase equipment, products from other companies that make them. And there are multiple companies making multiple Suitcase players. We've done a show recently comparing various Suitcase players, and there are differences in dimensions. That being said, yes, they do share some components. One of those components being the main mechanism, which is this piece here, which is shock mounted and kind of vibrates. Or I shouldn't say vibrates. The idea is it's shock mounted so that the vibrations of the speakers don't impede upon the sound quality coming up through the stylus. But yes, this is an off-the-shelf part that whoever makes this product specs out, including the tone arm, etc., etc. Now, where you see a lot of differences is over here in terms of, you know, not just the arrangement, the layout, but the functionality. Some of these have quite different capabilities from one another. So that's that. That being said, they still have an important place in the vinyl community. A lot of people start with these. They get interested in vinyl and want to take it to the next level. And these aren't bad. You know, they will not sound as good as a higher end record player. Absolutely won't. They've got a ceramic cartridge that sounds harsher and more tinny in most cases than a higher end magnetic cartridge. The speakers are small and don't really give you that full vinyl sound quality potential. That being said, it plays a record. It allows you to hear what is on a record and will get somebody interested and they can move on to something else. Plus, if you have a small space, if you want an extra thing, if a child perhaps is interested in vinyl, this is a low-cost way to, dip your proverbial toe in the water. You know what I mean? It's low risk. It's just like a disposable film camera. I still think that's the best analogy. Okay, enough of that. Here we are. I do like the fact this one is in black, and it's got that, typical textured veneer, or wrap, I should say. It's more of a wrap. These are made of a particle board, metal corner pieces. Looking on the bottom, we have the wrap continues around, and rubber feet. I always say this, but rather than just put feet on the bottom, I wish they would put feet on the back, because that's how you set a suitcase down. You know what I mean? That's how you put a suitcase down, and there's no feet on the back. There's just these hinges, which makes it a very uneven surface. That's kind of annoying. Okay, while we're back here, let's zoom in here on the back panel and see what we got. RCA output jack, so you can connect it to an external sound system. That will make it sound bigger and better. It won't make it, like a high-end turntable just because it's plugged into another sound system. You're still dealing with that ceramic phono cartridge, which isn't terrible. And then obviously you've got the power supply right there, 5 volts. The hinges are in back, and that's about it. Now, what's particularly interesting about this unit is this. It has a slot loading cassette player, and I have not seen that yet on any Suitcase player. You may be looking at this and saying to yourself, where's all the controls? How do you control this? Well, I will show you how to do that. It's actually very simple. It's an automatic tape deck. So you insert the cassette sideways there, and it will play automatically. Now, if you want to fast forward it, you push this button in halfway. If you want to eject the tape, you push it in all the way, and then the tape pops out. Well, how do you rewind? Well, you can't rewind because it's got a one-direction motor. You can fast forward, you can play, you can eject. But if you are a child of the 80s and 90s, as am I, you know that you absolutely can rewind. It's called flip the tape over and fast forward it a bit, then flip it over again and play it, and keep repeating that process until you get to the point you want to be. That may sound like an inconvenience, that may sound ridiculous, but it's just the way that we lived back in the day, and it was no big deal. Okay, back topside now. Again, I want to talk about the materials and the build quality a bit. So this is a solid plastic handle. It is molded to look like a leather handle. We've got metal grills in a color-matched finish that are sleek and look good to my eyes. Under the hood, again, we do have the Skywind type of mechanism with a small plastic platter, 3 rubber nubs. You don't need a platter mat. If you're insistent upon using one of those miniature platter mats, make sure it's a felt one, and then I would rip these rubber nubs out. But again, that's so pointless on this device. You just don't need to do it. Plastic cheapo 45 adapter. I would recommend upgrading to your custom Record-ology 45 adapters. And the tone arm is metal. It has a spring counterbalance. We'll check the tracking force, speed accuracy, and all that good stuff. Let's take a look at the cartridge. So the biggest thing we're looking at for here is the cantilever piece, which is that shaft is metal, not plastic. This will most likely include a sapphire stylus. If we're lucky, it may include a diamond stylus, which just basically means it would last longer. You can upgrade that, no problem. It's cheap to replace a stylus. And the reason why they spec these ceramics out is, and I've asked this question very specifically, the reason why they do it is because people that are buying this on impulse typically don't know or care about the difference between a ceramic and a magnetic cartridge. So there's not a lot of value by putting the word magnetic cartridge on the box because that audience doesn't know or care about that. Number 2, this outputs line level voltage, therefore it doesn't need a preamp circuit, so it's cheaper to make. And here's a look at the whole tone arm assembly. We do have a cueing lift, which is really nice. This cueing lever here allows you to gently raise and lower it. It's got a nice gentle descend. If yours drops like a rock, you can always add some fluid in there, and I've done videos on how to do that as well. So it gets the job done. Now, if we look a little bit closer here, got a couple of switches. One is a speed switch, and that allows you to select between 33, 45, and 78. The other one is an auto stop on and off. This will automatically stop playing at the end of the record, and you can turn that on or off. Okay, and we do have a line input, which is nice, so you can hook up any device you want. This is basically the input selector switch. So Bluetooth, you can connect your phone and use this as a Bluetooth speaker. You can switch it to line input mode, obviously phonograph/tape, and then Bluetooth out. As I said before, this will transmit to Bluetooth. I'm not going to test the Bluetooth in or out functionality because it's just not fun to watch. And I want to spend our time together today really looking at the record player portion of this and the tape player, and as well as doing that teardown, which will be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that. Now, this knob right here is going to be the on and off and volume control. Good drag, plastic knobs as expected. Headphone jack for private listening. And also while we're down this region, you can see a little bit closer those other two switches I was talking about molded into the primary mechanism itself. And that, my friends, is essentially all there is to a Suitcase player, at least this specific one. Like I've said in the past and in this video, this area right here can vary greatly. Some have pitch control, some have USB recording and playback. So it's important to point out which features a particular unit does or does not have. Okay, with that under our belts, let's go ahead and run some tests, starting with a tracking force test. Will this damage your records? All right, we are tracking at just under 5 grams, so it may hurt your feelings, but it's not going to hurt your records. Record snobs, vinyl snobs, I'm sorry, this will not damage your vinyl. Okay, a strobe disc means it is a strobe warning moment. So if you're sensitive to flashing patterns and all that stuff, avert your gaze as we verify the speed consistency and accuracy on this turntable. Or I should say record player. It's more of a record player. Okay, we are looking right here. And as you can see, those lines are moving a little bit to the left, which means it's a hair fast, but not by much. So I'm okay with those numbers. That's a number we can live with. Moving on to 45, which is one band up. That's 45 RPM. Also a hair fast, but not too bad. And if we go up here, 78 is locked and loaded. As you can hear, there's a little bit more motor noise at 78, but at 45 and 33, it's nice and quiet. But once you play a loud, scratchy 78 RPM record, you're not going to hear anything. Now, it is kind of a sad fact that if you wanted to correct the speed to a perfect value, it can be done, but the sad part is you would have to void your warranty in order to do so. I'm going to show you how to do that later because you're going to need to get down to the motor itself. There's no trim pots accessible to the outside of the case, but it's not difficult to do getting into it, but it would void your warranty. So something to consider. Okay, so we've tested the tracking force. We've tested the speed. So far, everything is looking great for what this is. And the next thing we need to do is give it a listen. We'll give it a listen, externally as well, the CD. We'll give it a listen just, in the room with the speakers first, and then we'll do a direct feed. For music today, at least for vinyl music today, we'll be listening to Vinyl Moon Volume 092. The packaging is always on point. Yes, these are real 3D glasses, and yes, that is a real 3D cover over there, and that actually opens up into like a virtual 3D pinball table thing, and it's got all this art. It's incredible. I just love how they do this stuff, and it's a cool way. These are basically mixtapes on vinyl with new and upcoming artists' music, so it's kind of a cool way to check out new music. It's sort of Bandcamp, but on analog media. So we're going to listen to this on the speakers to begin with, like I said. It didn't sound bad to me. It sounded pretty good. Again, the speakers are small. It's not going to blow you away sound quality-wise, but it was very listenable. Definitely impedance matched. So you listen to your headphones through an external system, you're going to get a much better audio experience. But I think that as far as Suitcase players go, sound quality-wise, things are looking up so far. All right, before we do the direct feed and eventually the teardown, let's listen to the cassette player as well. And for the cassette, we're going to be listening to this. This is Lost in the Ether by Emil's Telegraphic Transmission Device, friends of the channel. Let's go ahead and insert the cassette. Easy as that, and it starts playing automatically. That doesn't sound good. There is a rattle. What on earth? I have never heard a louder tape mechanism. And is it even moving the tape? It's still on the leader. Wow. That does not sound... It sounds like a tractor. Let me try to fast forward the tape. Press it halfway in to fast forward. That's real bad. Wow. Also, there's a lot of noise. Listen to that. Wow. That's rough. That's really rough. Okay, now it's quiet. It's not rattling. Okay, maybe we just need to give it some time to get going there, but at first it sounded pretty rough. Yeah. And I always say that I test stuff like right out of the box, and it's really not fair because you got to give stuff a little bit of time to kind of burn in, as it were. So yeah, it's cleared up, and it's okay. It is what it is. It's a very basic mono cassette mechanism, and we'll look at the head in a minute, but I'm sure it's mono, and doesn't sound as good as the record player by any means, but it physically plays your tapes, so it is a tape player. You're not going to want to give up on your records because you're so excited at cassettes based off of this, in my opinion. But it works. Okay, direct feed time. So this thing costs $100 on Amazon as of the filming of this. So that's a bit high for a Suitcase these days. So I would say unless you just are really enamored with the idea of having the cassette player built in, which you may be, and now that the thing has settled down a bit, it actually is working fine. It's still a very entry-level cassette mechanism, but in terms of overall build quality, sound quality, it's about as good as something on this level is going to get. So, but at $100, unless you're really enamored on that cassette feature, I would probably go with just a regular Suitcase player because you're going to get a way better price. $100 is definitely high for a Suitcase player without the cassette player. With the cassette player, I'd say it's fair. It's not like a fantastic deal considering the functionality, but it is fair. My impression of everything is that it's a thumbs up for, and I keep saying for what it is, and that's so important because people try to put this in the same category as something that it's not, which isn't fair to either the high-end product or this product. This is an entry-level product for people just getting into this, and that's what this whole channel is about anyway. Now, as promised, we are going to open this thing up and see what's on the inside. I love doing that. My advice to people when it comes to taking things apart is to don't do it. It's dangerous. You could shock yourself. You will void your warranty. You could damage it. That being said, I'm going to do it anyway. So we're going to start by taking the C-clip off. That's what holds the platter on. Make sure that you're careful not to let that go flying across the room, because you may never see it again. Then we're going to lift up on the platter. There's the bottom side of the plastic platter. The belt, the motor is right here. And as you can see, again, this whole unit, the motor, the tone arm, everything is all one piece. But this one is shock mounted, which is good. So as you can see, the screws on the perimeter are what is going to give us access to the underside. So I'm going to remove these screws and we'll go from there. One thing I want to point out is that the screws that are used are wood screws. These are not machine screws, because most likely these corner supports are going to be just a piece of wood glued in the corner. So sawdust and bits of wood can come out when you're backing these out. They have a tendency to strip out very easily. If that happens, you can also always put in some glue or something to try and firm it up again. But it's not designed to be opened up a ton of times. Absolutely not. So again, and I should have said earlier, preface this with power has been not only turned off but disconnected from the back. Got all 4 screws out, so let's go ahead and see what we got. Now, no surprise there, this is connected to some wires. Hopefully they are socketed. If not, actually, we could just set this back here like that. So yeah, the bottom side of the Skywind mechanism, again, it's all one solid piece. The motor, the micro switches, there's the circuit board right there. This is interesting because most of the circuitry is on the bottom side of the plinth. Back here, we just have terminals for the power. A lot of times they'll actually put the main board back there, but on this one, they haven't. They've actually just put a board with the connections, the terminals back there. Interesting how these two are not lined up. They're kind of in a different position, which is a strange choice. It's because this potentiometer is larger than this little switch down here, which is the other side of the selector switch. So rather than try to line them up, they just kind of like, it is what it is. So you get 2 knobs that are not quite lined up. So the speakers are, looks like 4 ohm, 3 watt speakers. But what's interesting is the magnet, the driver itself is the same diameter as the actual cone. It's very interesting. So not a terrible speaker for this application, not a terrible thing indeed. And if I back out here, I want to point out a couple of things. So those corner posts are indeed wood. So those wood screws will, I mean, you can only screw a wood screw in and out a few times. They also put little strips of foam on top of the speakers, again, to help with that sound isolation. The overall construction is wood glue, not uncommon. As we rotate this around, you can kind of see it's a press board material. And there it is. It's a pretty simple device. So there's the outside. It's a slot loader. So let me go ahead and put a tape in there. Largely mechanical, and the motion of putting in the tape actually flips different switches and levers that put the tape into alignment with the head. I mean, there's not a lot of control going on here. There's not like servo controls or anything like that. So when you put the tape in, it snaps down into position. The head comes into alignment. We've got a Mabuchi labeled motor back there. And that's about all there is to it. Here it is from the other side, kind of a different angle. And if I fast forward it by pushing in that switch halfway, or if I push it in all the way, it'll pop it up and then spit the tape out the other side. There's only one spindle there, since it's a one-way. It's a stray piece of hot glue. Since it's a one-way motor, you only need the one spindle. So the other sprocket, it just kind of follows suit based on what the lead one is doing. There's nothing in that one, only in this one. Let's take a look at that head. And there's also only one pinch roller as well. No record capabilities or anything like that. But let's take a look at that head. It will surely be mono. I'm actually surprised. This thing has a stereo tape head. So this is a stereo tape deck. I am very impressed, actually. I don't think I've ever seen a stereo head in this mechanism before. That is bizarre. Now, will you really get to enjoy the benefits of stereo separation on these speakers so close together? Not unless you put your head about right here The sound staging isn't great on something like this. That being said, I have to give them thumbs up for taking the effort to spec out a head that is indeed a stereo head. And there it is. It looks like HSAP 4211 is the one that they chose. So more power to them. As you can see on the back, the wiring also indicates stereo, 2 channels. All right, and that's it, my friends. I hope this was interesting and fun. It's always a blast to take things apart. As you can tell, there's a lot of sort of cavernous space inside one of these. So it's a pretty smart idea to put a tape deck in there. So if you're looking for a way to play tapes in stereo and a way to play your records as well, and doing it decently, you know, definitely there are a lot worse systems out there. As far as Suitcase players, it's just about as good as a Suitcase player gets, unless you step up to one of the moving magnet cartridge units that are in a larger form factor. But anyway, I hope this was interesting. It was a lot of fun to put it together. All right, my friends, and that's going to do it. Like I said, this is a decent unit. Really nothing wrong with it per se, so I'll put a link down below. Mostly, I just want to say a huge thank you for being there today and every day with the content we provide, engaging in our social media, all kinds of fun stuff like that. And we've got a ton of really cool things coming your way. Don't forget our merchandise, our 45 adapters, our Seaberg adapters, all that kind of cool stuff. But my friends, that's going to do it for today. So happy record hunting, and we'll see you next time.